so excited about the news I have to tell you. I wish I could have gotten it to you sooner, but the days, both on Earth and on Mars, have been busy for some time now. However, I thought it was of great importance that I tell you some of what has been happening on Mars recently, the story of how I became part of it, and what it means to me. I hope it can be an encouragement to you to hear about these things. As I readied myself for work and drove to the Jet Propulsion Lab on the morning of February 18, 2021, Perseverance Landing Day, I couldn't help but be overcome with how much was riding on the events of this one particular day. I thought back to January of 2015 when I decided to join the Mars 2020 team and the many thousands of hours I had personally invested in the success of this mission. And today, it was essential for the crucial entry, descent, and landing activities to work correctly in order to get us from going to Mars to being on Mars. It's complicated, it's risky, and it's all or nothing, but it's really the only way to do it. I also thought about how I got here. As a farm girl from Ohio who spent her summers weeding the bean fields, cutting trees on the ditch banks, and raising sheep for 4-H, I'm not the most likely person to be part of the leadership team of a mission searching for ancient life on a neighboring planet. In fact, growing up, I loved the farm, sports, and music. For a while, I even wanted to be a concert pianist. From Mendelssohn to Debussy, my soul was moved by the stories and complexity of the music. I was also moved by adventure and doing hard things. My dad used to tell me stories of his Army Corps of Engineer days where he worked on the early rockets at White Sands. He told stories of how the rocket launches often resulted in the test rockets screaming in many different directions other than up on those early days. In fact, we had a picture over our record player in Dad's office of one of those early rockets that I still have today. So when it came time to choose a career, my love of complexity and adventure, along with the stories my dad told me, made me think that building rockets and spaceships would be adventurous, complex, hard, and very cool. All things I loved. So that's what took a farm girl from Ohio to MIT for a degree in aerospace engineering, and then to the Jet Propulsion Laboratory to work in space exploration. But it wasn't long after I arrived at JPL that I started to feel the need for an adventure that was outside the space exploration business. In addition to my passion for music, I was a person of faith. I would not say I was very religious, but I had personally experienced God in a way that guided and impacted my life as a Christian. I struggled with the decision to take some time off from JPL to pursue these other passions of mine because it could have led me away from my career in space exploration completely. But in the end, I felt that the call of sharing my faith journey with others was important. In particular, I wanted to share with people who had never had the chance to hear. So I ended up moving to Sevastopol, Ukraine, for nearly a year and taught English and Bible. Our students were all wonderful, but clearly impacted by the difficulties under communism, and were slow to begin to think and live more freely. The adventures were wild and require another letter for many of the details. But as I was able to share with people who lacked hope for their future and their children's, I began to realize how important hope is, not just to me and my faith, but to humanity. Without hope, we don't look forward to or dream of new things. We don't try to overcome evil. We don't work toward better days for us all together. So as my time in Ukraine was coming to an end, I was impacted by the need for hope for all of us. And I found that hope toward greater things, better days, and progress were things that my work at JPL provided me as well. I ended up sending a postcard from some Greek island to Joe Savino, our electronics division chief engineer at JPL, asking if there were any jobs for me if I were to return to JPL. He called me the day I got back to Ohio and offered me a job on the Mars Pathfinder mission. And that's when my Mars career began. Now, back at JPL on February 18th, 2021, once I arrived at work, I still had a few hours before I needed to be on console in the operations room. I flipped through the loss of signal contingency procedure, praying that this look through it would be the final look. I even declared to myself we would have no loss of signal anomalies during entry, descent, and landing, or on this mission ever. Those are the worst kind of anomalies, where you grow hundreds of gray hairs for each time you try to communicate with the spacecraft and don't hear back from it. But I also knew that I and the team were ready. We had invested years in the design, building, integration, verification, and validation of this vehicle. In fact, I was the verification and validation program lead, having also been the lead system engineer, engineering technical authority, and mission system development manager over the years. So as I thought about all of the many things that had to go right, I reflected back on the many tests we did to verify and build confidence in the vehicle. From environmental tests to field tests in the desert to centrifuge tests to high-altitude parachute tests, we did what we needed to do to show this vehicle would work. I knew we had done a very solid job in our verification program, but there are always unknowns and many things Mars may throw at us that we don't anticipate. So I was confident in our work, but also humble about the possibility of something going wrong. And if just one major piece didn't work, particularly during entry, descent, and landing, our new mission with great hopes of searching for evidence of ancient microbial life on Mars would be completely over. As I was entering the operations building that day, I crossed paths with some congressional representatives who were coming to watch the landing. Their interest, excitement, and questions reminded me of how much bigger this event was than just me and our team. We were part of a nation that was in need of something hopeful to experience in the midst of a year where every person was impacted by a global pandemic. It was a tough year, not just for our country, but for the entire world. And today, our team had an opportunity to offer a little glimmer of brightness and hope to what had been quite a dark year on Earth. I, of course, wanted this success, not just for me and my team, but maybe even more so for all of us. It could become something we could all celebrate together as something good to help propel us forward. I knew that even a perfect landing would not be able to take away the difficulties of the past year, or even compare in any way to the depth of the struggles that many faced. However, I thought that it might simply give us something different, successful, fun, and a little hopeful to think about if we were to be able to succeed on this day. My last stop prior to going to the control room was to do an interview during the landing show where I shared my experiences across working on all 5 rovers we had landed on Mars. I talked about how we started on Mars Pathfinder, just trying to figure out how to land on Mars, and wondering if water had ever been there. And now today, we were landing a small car-sized vehicle with a capability to search for evidence of ancient life, packaging those samples in tubes and placing them in a location for future return to Earth. As I walked back downstairs, I thought about that and how we had potential to reveal an entirely new dimension to our solar system. And also, for me personally, because of my faith, I thought of the privilege it is to learn more about the creator of this universe through the work that I do. When I arrived back downstairs, I sat down in the back row with the rest of the management team for the mission. As was often the case throughout my career at JPL, I was the only female engineer in the management row. It reminded me of my early days at JPL where I would proudly wear my brass rat, my MIT class ring, for confidence, and then study and review all my material practically all night long before any presentations. I wanted to prove that as a female, I wasn't just as competent as my coworkers, I was the best. This competitive spirit and need for excellence was really what propelled me to where I sat today. Even if I was grilled a little harder during reviews because of my blonde hair or Ohio accent, I realized that if I simply focused on being someone they couldn't afford not to have on the team, it didn't matter my hair color, gender, accent, or faith. At that point, the 7 minutes of terror, the landing sequence, was beginning. I was logged in, looking at the critical semaphore tones that the vehicle was sending to the ground as it jettisoned the cruise stage. Almost immediately, we got an unexpected fault report that got many of us very nervous. There were some text messages and back-channel chatter for a few minutes, but we didn't have much time to think about it. In fact, at this point, because of the one-way light time to get signals from Mars to Earth was 11 minutes, the landing had already happened. Good, bad, or in between, it was done. Fortunately, the confusing fault message was step-by-step overcome with a successful expected sequence of messages for parachute deploy, heat shield jettison, radar lock on the ground, back shell separation, powered descent, terrain relative navigation divert solution, and those beautiful words, Tango Delta nominal, touchdown confirmed. Today, we are just a few months into the mission. We've checked out the rover and instrument systems and all are healthy. We have driven, taken selfies, deployed and flown a helicopter, and produced oxygen from the carbon dioxide atmosphere. And although we have only just barely started the real objective of this mission, of searching for evidence of ancient life, we are in the right place to do it. We chose and landed in Jezero Crater. This crater is the location of an ancient lake that used to be the size of Lake Tahoe. We are possibly in the best location on Mars to be ready to find evidence of past microbial life if it were ever there. It will take over a year to explore and collect the samples that we think have the highest likelihood of telling us something new, something hopeful, and something surprising so we can learn more about ourselves and our solar system. It was wonderful to catch up with you, and I'm so excited to be able to share these successes with you. I know you are one of the many who are cheering us on to bring hope in this difficult time by having success and gaining knowledge. I wish for you that this successful and hopeful mission can impact your life in a positive way. Many blessings to you.